The only time a lower price point is good is when people are taking a risk and they're not sure they want to risk a certain amount of money. So if they're already coming to it and they know what they're getting, there's no real big deal of making it a bit more expensive. So here's the profits for the first 4 months. It was in the App Store. So you can see the $140, that was my best day ever, the launch day. Over time, it kind of goes up and down every day. That big spike there was, it happened to be mentioned by some blog in Italy, and I made $100 that day, which is pretty sweet. And so over a 4-month period, I made $3,200. So not a huge amount of money, but not bad either. It's basically an extra $1,000 a month, which isn't bad at all. A little bit of extra income. So that was pretty cool, but I knew there was still more. I knew this game had a bit more potential than that. So I started to work on at least what I call the light version, which is, if you're familiar with the App Store, most light versions for apps, they're basically, use 5 levels, here's 10 levels, get the full game. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to make a light version where once you get it, you want to share the light version with your friends, not just tell your friends about the full version. So I spent a lot of time, and I actually made 60 brand new puzzles just for the light version, which is pretty rare. You never really see free games that actually have that much content. Every once in a while they do. You'll see like a free app for a day thing or whatever, but you never see something like that where it's like an app, here's a full game for free forever. And if you want, you can buy the paid game, but like those 60 puzzles will probably take you 6 hours to beat or something like that. Maybe not that long, but a long time. And I released that on September 30th, so less than a month ago. And that's when things kind of started to change. So in Italy, basically a day after I released Trainyard Express, a really big Italian blog, actually the same one that I mentioned it earlier, tried out Trainyard Express and absolutely loved it and gave it a fantastic review. And at that point, right away, it went to #1 free in Italy, pretty much that day. So when it went to #1 free in Italy, I checked my stats for that day, I got 22,000 free downloads a day. So at that point, they weren't paid downloads, but already 7 times more people than had ever played it before were now playing the game. So that was great. And that led to the craziest thing that happened, which was that as it started to grow in Italy, it also started to grow in the UK. And when it started to grow in the UK, Apple finally noticed. So Apple decided, saw it coming in the UK, and I got a magical email from Apple on October 5th, where they said, we'd like some art, we're planning on featuring your game this Thursday. And I was like, finally, this is what I've been looking for, this is how crazy it is. So you'll notice on this chart, there is no longer a legend, but this is the $240 I mentioned earlier that I made that day. So, yeah. So it's a lot. You can do the math. If you look on my blog, that chart's there. You can Photoshop it, figure it out.
I've seen this chart in Inconvenient Truth, I think, wasn't it?
Yes, this is a very convenient truth for me. All right. So that was good, but still, I was like, there's still more I can do. So I watch the App Store a lot. It's almost like I study the App Store. So I buy pretty much every game that's in the top 100, at least games that are like under $10 so I don't go poor. And I try them all out. I see what's good, what's bad. I watch the rankings. I study how they work. So I was like, okay, I got to try and experiment. So I waited until Tuesday, October 12th. And at this time, because I was featured, you're in this list, and I was pretty high up on the list, and the game started climbing the charts. And by this time, it was actually number 48 paid app in the US, so pretty high. And that number is really important because the way the App Store works, when you go to the top apps, it only shows the top 50 apps. So there's a page of 25, you click load more, there's another page of 25, and that's it. So at number 48, all of a sudden I'm in that list. So I knew that was a big deal. And also I'm part of a group of iPhone developers that writes blog posts. Each person, it's called iDev Blog a Day. Each person takes a different day of the week and writes a blog post on that day. So my day happened to be Tuesday, which was October 12th. And so I wrote a really detailed and honest blog post, kind of similar to this presentation you're seeing right now. In fact, quite similar to this presentation you're seeing right now. The full history of the game. And then at the end of that post, I mentioned that I was about to drop the price to 99 cents from $2.99. I also posted on Reddit asking for support. So the reason I dropped the price, the reason 99 cents is a huge gamble is because I was making quite a lot of money, but I knew it would last 7 days while I was featured. But by dropping 99 cents, I was all of a sudden making a third less money. But I had the possibility of rising up in the charts farther because the charts are based on volume, not on profits or money. So more sales, higher in the charts. So I posted on Reddit asking for support. Now, because I said their app store, I knew that at this point, a lot of you have probably heard of a game called Angry Birds. It's been at the top of the App Store chart for like 6-7 months, super popular, 99 cents. They made like $6 or $7 million. But all of a sudden, a couple weeks before this happened, a game called Cut the Rope came out, and it actually beat Angry Birds, and it was basically the first game in the last 7 months to ever knock Angry Birds out of the top position in the chart. So now Angry Birds is at number 2. And what happens when you're number 2 instead of number 1 is you get half as many sales. Because at number 1, everyone just opens the App Store, clicks the number 1 game, because they want to have the number 1 game in the App Store. So at number 1, you stay at number 1 forever, because everyone just keeps buying it, keeps buying it, keeps buying it. So I posted on Reddit, and I knew that now Angry Birds has been knocked down to this number 2 position. It's a bit more vulnerable. And I said, dear Reddit, with your help, my iPhone game can overtake Angry Birds, for real. So, so at first, I got some interesting comments. I also said AMA, which means ask me anything. So people ask me all kinds of questions about iPhone development, about all kinds of stuff. So this post on Reddit had 358 upvotes, which was really good, and over like 480 comments or something like that. People asking me questions, and I monitored it for days, you know, answering as much as I could, whatever. And that helped a lot. So much so, in fact, that, well, because of that post, I started getting mentioned on a lot of places. So I was written about on the whole story. It was almost the story was more interesting than the game itself. So it was written about on Boing Boing, the unofficial Apple weblog, Gizmodo, Joystick. A ton of sites picked up the story. And Touch Arcade finally actually reviewed the game, and just happened to that Tuesday. So it was like a perfect storm of all these events coming together at that point in time. And I'll show you how my rankings changed from the 99 cent sale to then. So that's the rankings. So you can see I was at 48, and then all of a sudden drop the price to 99 cents, do the Reddit thing, all the blogs start mentioning it, rank shoots up. By the end of the Tuesday, it was 9th in the US, and by noon the next day, it had passed Angry Birds in the App Store. Wow! That was pretty awesome. This is what I was going for, right? So it passed Angry Birds, it stayed ahead of Angry Birds for like 2 days, and then Angry Birds kind of caught up eventually. But at that point, it didn't matter. It was, you know, I had achieved my goal of passing Angry Birds. So the results. So there were over 3 million downloads of Trainyard Express, the free version. Because of Trainyard being so popular, the free version also got ridiculously popular. So for some days I had 370 or more thousand downloads a day. So right now it's actually increased since I wrote this. So now it's like 3.2 million. On my solution publishing site, up to the point where I had released Trainyard Express, I had around 7,000 solutions submitted. And as of now, I have over 650,000 solutions submitted. That's all running on DreamHost, which is kind of crazy. For like $15 a month. So. But they have unlimited bandwidth, unlimited disk space, so I don't care. It's probably taking up like 40 gigs of disk space now. So I've been in the top 10 worldwide for the past 2 weeks. This is basically only 2 weeks ago that this happened. And also this week, so there's the featured list, and then on top of the featured list, you can also get picked for either Game of the Week or App of the Week. And Apple actually picked Trainyard for their Game of the Week in Europe this week. Not in North America for some reason, but in Europe and pretty much the rest of the world except North America. So that was pretty sweet. So in Europe right now,
they like trains over there, right?
Yes, it's true. And while this was happening, Angry Birds actually released a new version of Angry Birds. So now the top 4 in Europe is Angry Birds, Cut the Rope, Angry Birds, and then Trainyard. That's how it works. So that's kind of the crazy results. And yeah, so the future for me, I like the stuff I'm working on in InnisBlue. I like the people there, so I'm going to stay at InnisBlue till the end of the year to finish up my current projects and all that sort of thing. But then in 2011, I have enough money now that I can actually form a mini company, which may just be me or me and an artist or something like that. And at the time I released Trainyard Express and all that happened, I was starting to work on a new game. I was like, you know what, this Trainyard thing, maybe this will work, maybe it won't, but I gotta focus on something new. I can't spend the rest of my life doing Trainyard stuff, right? So I started working on something new, but now that Trainyard's so popular, I'm gonna refocus on it. I'm gonna do lots of updates, a puzzle editor, all that sort of stuff, and I'm also gonna try and bring it cross-platform, so to Android, desktop, and more. So maybe you'll see it on a BlackBerry Playbook or something like that. So here's a couple things I've learned in case you're interested in doing iPhone game development or iPhone development in general. Don't get a publisher. Rovio, who's the company that made Angry Birds, had a publisher for Angry Birds, and they publicly said they regret getting Chillingo as a publisher. You don't need it. The App Store, like my third point says, the App Store it's kind of the best App Store marketing is the store itself. And what that means is if you're in the top charts or if you're featured, that makes way bigger difference than anything else. Because I've seen what happens when big blogs mention it, and even that doesn't make as big a difference as just Apple's stuff that they do, basically. Don't launch at 99 cents. There's no reason to. At 99 cents, no one knows what your game is anyway. Or sorry, when you release your game, people will know what it is because you've done all this launch buzz. So you don't need to make it 99 cents. You can make it a slightly higher price, like $1.99, $2.99, whatever. One of the key things I did is that I released the light version later once the game was perfect. So I'd had all that time to do updates, to get user feedback, and I didn't release the light version until it was perfect because of the fact that maybe a little contrary to how you might think it is, free users don't enjoy the fact that games are free. They're actually much, much more picky about them. So your game has to be absolutely perfect if you want free users to like it, because they'll get into it, and if they're even frustrated for 1 second, they'll just close your app, delete from their phone instantly. Because they have no investment. They haven't invested any money. There's no reason for them to keep playing the game. So make your light version absolutely perfect. Users should like your light version by itself. You don't need, unlike what a lot of games do, you don't want people to buy your light version, or sorry, not buy your light version, get your light version, see like, maybe this is good if I spent, a couple bucks for it, but the light version itself isn't good. The thing I did is I made a light version where people would want to share just the light version with their friends. I watched the people talking about it on Twitter, and a lot of people just talk about Trainyard Express, and that's fine. I figure as long as people are talking about it, eventually a lot of them will end up getting the paid version. And obviously keep updating your game. Don't just release it and let it die. Keep adding new content and features. That goes for apps too, just as well. So next slide is kind of related to that. Tips for apps. So every application has been done before, but most of them are awful. So you'll hear Apple's slogan, there's an app for that. Well, there is an app for that, but most of them are crap. If you look at the App Store, probably 99.9% of the apps on there are just not very good. There's a huge amount of room for nice, polished, well-thought-out apps. So don't be afraid of the stats when they tell you there's 300,000 apps. There is absolutely room for high-quality apps on the App Store. I think Flash developers and designers have an absolutely unique sense for visuals and motion that a lot of people who come from normal application development just don't have or don't have experience with. Like the stuff you saw from Grant earlier, there's all that sort of stuff. There isn't really much like that in the mobile world, and it's totally possible with the technology. There's room for all that stuff that's really visual and in your face and just cool experiences. And there really isn't much of that. Right now in the App Store, there's just, there's apps, and there are some definitely good ones, but I think there's so much room for more good apps on the App Store. And Android is also really cool. There's a lot of other interesting markets opening up with Windows Phone 7 and stuff. But the Android market is very different, especially for paid apps. They have a very lax return policy, or very flexible return policy, which means a lot of users will buy games and return them when they're done with them, rather than actually permanently paying for them. So when Angry Birds released Angry Birds for Android like a week or two ago, they released it for free with ads in it, and they got like 2 or 3 million downloads in a couple days. And so even for them, they decided, despite having that really well-known brand name, they decided the best thing for them to do was ad-based. So that's something to consider if you're planning on developing for Android. And there's some final advice. So if you're working on something, don't be afraid